Hello and welcome to the discussion of the day, another simulating round of cricketing discussion, a post-match IPL presentation on the Sports Bash YouTube channel with our regular panelists Dwaipan and Jay, where we are here to discuss the second match of a dramatic Thursday, a match between KKR and Rajasthan Royals, a match where the winning margin was more than the runs scored by Rajasthan Royals, a victory margin of 86 runs, and Rajasthan just able to score a meager 85 runs against a dominant KKR side, which posed an imposing total. And that imposing total was courtesy brilliant batting in the last 10 overs. And that brings my question to a panelist about how KKR has been performing so well. But today we saw how they bounced back, especially in the last 10 overs, and it uh, shows the true essence of a side, a T20 side, especially where in the last 10 overs, you're able to make the most out of the balls that you get. So, KKR, my question to Dwaipan about how KKR's batting effort was quite laudable in today's performance. 69 runs in the first 10 overs, and then scoring a century, 102 runs for 4 wickets in the last 10 overs, which catapulted them to impose a huge score of 176 against Rajasthan Royals. So, in a way, Rajasthan Royals' death bowling was quite weak. But we should focus more on the brilliant batting by KKR. So my question to Dwaipan about how you feel about the batting prowess of KKR tonight.
Yes, if we think about the build up to all the KKR campaigns in the last 2-3 years is about people focus on Andre Russell, Dinesh Karthik, Morgan being the middle order powerhouse of their batting unit. But look at what the top order youngsters of Gill, Iyer, Rana, and Tripathi has done for them all these, especially in the UAE leg. It's almost, I keep saying this, it's like a breath of fresh air. And even today, look at what Rana did, 12 of just 5 balls. He got out playing the shots. And the most impressive part for me has been Venkatesh Iyer showcasing a new dimension to his game. He's not just one who'd go bang, 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 and if the surface is not assisting, he just plays shots and get out. He was willing to draft in that grind to take his time. And I feel it also goes to show that even in the T20 format, you can afford being a top order batsman. You can afford taking this 3, 4, 5 overs to just try and understand what the pitch is doing, how it's behaving. In the first half, that's what KKR did. In the second half, I think that's what the top order batters communicated to the newcomers into the crease, and they were just going for the shots. It was a very well constructed, organized innings, and let's not even go into the way how RR chased it. I mean, yeah.
Correct. And talking about, but because we need to talk about RR's batting, so to speak, because they're great batsmen. So, and they obviously ended their campaign this time for this edition of the IPL. But if we talk about their batting lineup, we had young Jaiswal, who had been performing quite well in the previous matches. Then we had Livingston, we had the captain Sanju Samson, we had Shivam Dubey, then we had a new player called Anuj Rawat, Glenn Phillips. We had Rahul Tewatia, who was the only player who was able to perform 5 fours and 2 sixes. The only Rajasthan player who looked confident enough to bat on the surface. And when a lot of historical players, great players in the lineup of RR, but it was a domino effect. I mean, no one was able to stay against the great thunderstorm that was unleashed by the KKR bowlers. And I mean, KKR bowlers were like they dominated. Maybe they got into the minds of the Rajasthan players. And great point by Dwaipan about how well constructed and well choreographed a collective team effort by KKR. And we saw the complete contrast in the way the RR batsmen toppled down. So, Jay, your points or review about how easily the team of Rajasthan, which seemed quite mighty on paper, easily capitulated against the might of the KKR Bulls.
As far as we talk about the RR team, in the second leg of the IPL, we have not seen them perform that good on the batting side. Sanju Samson initially was performing decently, then in a few games when he was not performing, the openers took up the pace and a few people down the order they were coming up. And a few games back, they even chased a very high total with just 3 to 4 of their batsmen outperforming. That was Yashasvi Jaiswal and mostly Shom Dubey. They had pulled all the weight, right? But when we talk about today's game, as soon as we saw the fall of a few wickets, when we talked in the previous discussion, it was about the same thing. When you talk about new players coming on, for them to have confidence and for them to swing big or take those kinds of shots or stick around, you need an experienced player who's keeping them grounded. And we've even talked about this in the previous talks about RR that they're not having anybody experienced who's able to stay grounded that long. that other people can take inspiration from him or play in a way where they are complementing that player. Sanju Samson also went out today. The experienced player Livingstone was also not playing that good. Yashasvi Jaiswal went out pretty early today, and today's pitch was again not that of a good scoring pitch, but KKR they were able to get 170, and that is the highest total on this ground on the second leg of IPL. So that was a really big achievement, and that put that much of pressure on Ara. So I guess they just bowled out under the pressure, and they were not able to cope up with it. And the kind of batting that they showed was really disappointing considering the kind of names that they have. But I guess the key lies in having an experienced player who's keeping them grounded or who's keeping them going while they are in a bad patch.
Right, right. So
Yeah.
we had
And
discussed, we had talked about
just
this.
to add a bit to what Jay has to say, Rajasthan against Chennai chased on 119, 17.3. In the next two games, if you combine the runs they made, it's still not 190. So what I feel is Rajasthan is a very mercurial side.
Right,
The literal meaning of the term is someone who's accustomed to mood changes, and you just don't know what is going to come there, because they are a side who chased on 100 19, 17.3 players, people, viewers like me, and you would want to see them go bat every time they do. But if they come up with this 90 and then to this 85, they broke their own record of the least number of runs scored in an innings this year. It's just disappointing. I mean, I don't know where do they go from here. Maybe mega auction is good for sides like this to just go through a clean
No, but
slate,
I
bring
guess
in.
they have more of new upcoming players, and they are more of a team that is growing, that is under development, instead of a team that is at its peak like KKR. KKR in the first leg was not performing that great, but in the second leg you see them as a groomed team, right?
Yeah,
So I guess
absolutely.
Rajasthan Royals is more of a team that is still under grooming and that is still under development, and I guess we'll be able to see more of them on a later stage.
right. So great points raised by both of our panelists about how the match today shaped up to be. I mean, the one of the highest scores for this leg of the IPL, and then it was answered by one of the lowest scores. And there was nothing royal about Rajasthan Royals today in the way they performed. And yeah, great point by Dwaipan about how the mega auction will be very important for teams like Rajasthan Royals, where we also talked about how they lack a player, who has this aura, who can, a charge or boost a team. And even if the team, for example, if Dhoni is not able to perform, or say Rohit Sharma is not able to perform, Warner no longer a part of Hyderabad mostly, but if players like this, they are not able to perform still, they guide their team to a victory because of by just the mere presence of them in the side. But Sanju Samson doesn't have that aura. And then we have a lot of new players. So maybe in the mega auction, Rajasthan will be looking forward to bring in a player who can inspire the team and to bounce back for the next edition of the IPL. Now coming to the discussion of the day, I mean, KKR, a point raised by Jay about how KKR has curated their team to near perfection, especially in the second leg. They bounced back quite well as compared to the first leg of the IPL, and they're able to do so courtesy some brilliant performances by the youngsters they have. We have talked about Venkatesh Iyer. The country knows about his mother and some trivia. Just because of his great explosive performances, we saw another side to him, as Vaipan pointed about how he paced his innings. I could see a signs of Rohit Sharma in him. Rohit Sharma always brilliantly paces his innings. I mean, he takes a lot of time initially to understand the pitch and how it is functioning, but then just like a Mercedes car is able to catapult from 0 to 100 in under 3 seconds. So a great performance by Venkatesh Iyer. And then we have other youngsters like Gill, Tripathi, and even Shivam Mavi today. It was great to see him winning the man of the match. I mean, bowling 3 overs, giving just 26 runs and picking up 4 important crucial wickets. So the youngsters for KKR have, took up the entire team's responsibility. And it is because of them that Eoin Morgan also mentioned about how it takes a huge burden off his shoulders. So my discussion for the day to both of our panelists about how you see the performance of the youngsters in the larger picture of KKR comfortably entering the playoffs? And do you feel that they will be retained in the mega auction, or will KKR look forward to change their entire team and bring in new players, or will the youngsters be something that KKR banks on in the mega auction as well? So first Jai and then Vaibhav.
When we talk about KKR, I guess it is like a loop of positivity where Eon Morgan, like the experienced players, are happy with the weight off their shoulders, and the new or the fresh players or the people who are not having that much experience are playing that way because they know that if they fail, they are having experienced player to back that up. So it is like when we talk about downward spiral, this might be something like an upward spiral that is going on for KKR, where they
True.
have players banking on round, and it is a complete loop where the whole team is shining out brightly. So Ian Morgan, he rightly pointed out that it is a very heavy weight off his shoulders. Like when you see in contrast with Sanju Samson, he is one player who is having to bank all of that responsibility, and he's having
Great
nowhere
point.
to go
Yeah.
with it. In a few games, there are a few players performing here and there, but there is nobody else on whom he is able to rely in this kind of in this leg decently. So that has been
Right.
shown in KKR, and these kinds of plays are really important because I guess that is what has propelled them in this direction, and that is what has propelled them into the qualifiers. Nobody could tell or even predict like they'll be going into the qualifiers looking at their performance in the first leg.
The first leg. Yes.
And yeah, so that I guess they have played a very important role, a monumental role, I would say. And I guess KKR would be wanting to retain a few of them to keep this kind of a momentum going, because you don't fix something that is not broken. If there is no issue, if there is nothing wrong with your team, so you're not going to go over the you're not going to overstretch, and you're not going to try to make it better and break it instead. So if they retain a few of the decent players, that would be a really welcome like a welcome thing on their side.
Right. So
So
KKR will undoubtedly be the success story for this leg of the IPL. What do you think about that, Web?
now, before I go ahead with what I have to say, Jay, quick question to you. If you are a KKR, if you are the person making the decisions in KKR, and it comes down to retaining either Morgan or Gill, whom are you going for?
That is a difficult question. Ian Morgan, he is
Matlab,
the kind
you
of
go
cat.
with the experience or you go with the youth? Any other
I
player?
would go with the experience,
Yeah.
because it definitely matters who is at the helm of the boat, who is guiding the team in which direction. The coach and the captain are really important players. You have a number of youngsters who might be able to put up the role of Shubman Gill. You've seen a lot of openers who are doing good, but the driving force, as I talked about it a number of times, where the person is driving the whole team, where he's making those kinds of decisions. You need a player with that kind of an aura or with that kind of a mindset at that spot. So till the point he's succeeding, he's doing this great. He has brought the team from a certain position to this kind of a position. So you're not supposed to let go of him that easy.
Right.
Yes,
Right. So from
absolutely.
so from an
Sorry,
experienced Jay,
uh,
we go to a young Dwaipan. What do you feel about
yeah,
how the youngsters
what I
have
feel,
performed?
I'm just gonna say a bit of the background story because it's kind of relevant to what we are discussing now. The KKR CEO is a certain Mr. Venki Mysore. I don't know if you guys have heard about him. So he's someone who after the U under 19 World Cup in 2018, he was the one communicating to the team that I want the youngsters like Gill, Shivam Mavi, and Kamlesh Nagarkoti, right? These three are the ones who must come to KKR. And by bringing them in KKR, Shubman Gill has been a constant feature in the side, but these two pacers have not been there. So somewhere in the last years, Venki Mysore was asked that, do you think they are future prospects? And also Venki Mysore was absolutely with no second thoughts. He answers that, yes, I have invested. Of course, the team has invested in the youngsters, and I feel that's what KKR has done. If I'm a youngster in KKR in 2021 who have backed me in the last 3 years with my injuries and all, so I feel like giving them back to them by repaying the faith shown on me whenever I get that chance. And today we saw Shivam Mavi doing that. 3 scalps or hardly anything is something that. And of course, I agree with what Jay had to say about the experience part. Last year in IPL 2020, I felt like Baz McCallum is someone. His coaching style is very different to what he was as a batsman on the field and even as a captain. But this year he's more on the front. He's more active with what he has to say. He's more the enforcer in the KKR, as someone like Ponting has been there in the last 2-3 years for DC. So I think that's played a huge role, and I completely agree with the experience part. But still, I feel if the retention comes down to someone like a Morgan, Dinesh Karthik, Russell, or a Gill, not Venkatesh Iyer, but maybe I feel they'll go ahead with Gill in the retention plans.
Right, right. So great points by both of our panelists about how KKR would be thinking their mindset in the mega auction next year. But brilliant performance by the youngsters for all teams, and especially the success story for KKR has been banked upon by the youngsters as well.
I would just
Okay,
like
Jay.
to add on to what Dwaipan said, because when you're talking about Shubman Gill, I would like to draw a parallel with Sanju Samson, like, a player who's under development, who's going to do great, but he's just not there yet, right?
Yes.
So Sanju Samson can be a person on whom you can bank, who can create that aura, who can go the distance, and who can be a person around whom you're building the team. But I guess RR have just done that too soon. So that is why we are not able to see anybody else, like, taking up the weight or picking up the pace or doing all that is expected of an experienced captain happen with Sanju Samson. He's under grooming and he's coming into, like, he's coming of age and he's doing all of that at his pace. So if you would choose Shubman Gill, I think you would, like, pluck a fruit that still hasn't ripened up yet. So I guess that is where the difference lies.
True.
Right,
I
right. Uh, just on the lighter side, I always thought that there was this conspiracy theory that Mr. Venki Mysore was the pseudonym of Venkatesh Iyer, and he has been, he has been the one taking all the decisions. But now he has finally shown his face and performing. But anyway, that discussion for on yet another day. But before we move on to a preview, which will be very interesting tonight, some questions about the winning side, trivia questions about KKR. I hope Jai will be able to, continue his tally, victorious tally. Now, first question: who was the Kolkata Knight Riders' highest wicket taker in the 2008 edition of the IPL?
Sure, Akhtar.
Okay, what about you, Jai? It was Umar Gul who picked
Oh,
up the maximum number of wickets back
I
then
was
when
I
Pakistan was a
I
part.
was I did not complete. I was going to say Shoaib Akhtar's Pakistan teammate Umar Gul. You
Okay,
know you did not allow me to complete only, so you know.
right now, okay, good one. Second question: which Kolkata Knight Riders batsman scored a record 14 ball 50 in 2014 when they needed to beat
Yusuf Pathan.
Sunrisers Hyderabad? Yusuf Pathan, yeah, but it was a very important knock. It attains a lot of relevance because they were in a similar situation that Mumbai
Yes,
Indians had. Not
true,
a
true.
very difficult situation like Mumbai Indians is there, but they had to beat Sunrisers Hyderabad within 15 overs if they wanted to, get the second place in the league table. And Pathan scored. And my last question, third question for the day. Uh, okay, let me ask this one: who is the first batsman to score an IPL 100 against KKR across all the editions?
Riddhiman Saha.
Okay, what about you, Jay? Tuka.
Oh no. Riddhiman Saha, no, he scored in 2014 final. Rohit Sharma scored in 2012 as well.
Okay,
I
what
don't know
about
if
you,
someone
Jay?
else
I'll go with Rohit Sharma.
Okay, it's David Warner. He scored an unbeaten 107 in a match. Like he was playing for Delhi Daredevils. Warner played one edition, and it was a 40-run victory over KKR. And
See,
since then, several.
Delhi franchise at the starting years of the IPL was like a university. You know, all players came here once. You know, just honed their skills, spent some time here, did their internships, got some job experience, and then they got a placement in different
So
sites. So
you are telling me
Yeah,
like DC is that place
did a
which
lot.
doesn't retain people with talent, just grooms them and then lets them go and then finds new people to fill in their place.
We are
Not a
very
really good
generous.
example.
We are very generous in that. You know.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess it's very ironic that the generosity hasn't been able to help them win IPL trophy so far. But anyway, moving on to the preview, a
Ouch.
very interesting preview because we have always talked about how important tosses are, but we have rarely seen a situation where just by on the virtue of winning a toss you can win an entire match. So a very hilarious, rare situation tomorrow, a match between Mumbai Indians and Sunrisers Hyderabad. If Mumbai Indians lose the toss, they lose the match, and if they want to win, they have to score a victory at least by 170 runs. Only then they can enter the playoffs. So a very interesting preview. Brief comments, Dwaipan and Jay, about what you feel might happen, and will Mumbai Indians get that miracle, so to speak?
It is like, a
Jay,
gigantic task which is almost impossible. So winning the toss, I guess, like, all the MI players and that Dadi that we had seen praying a few seasons back. So like, I guess all the MI fans must be praying in the same way that MI should win the toss and at least get a chance to do that. Otherwise, if Kane Williamson he comes in and then like, he tells guys, let's just all of us leave the pitch, scoring the minimum runs as much as possible, do whatever you want to do, go out there, just dance and come back. And it's still okay because we are ruining the party for MI. So that would be fun to watch. Otherwise, all the MI people are still pleading that I hope they win the toss and they try to at least get a decent chance at fight.
And what
Yeah,
about
I
your
mean,
weapon?
the only thing that I've got to say is that what if Rohit tomorrow wins the toss and chooses to field, and so that they don't get a chance to, and just that he's like, we are just preparing for the next season and what, and
चलेगा
now
दिल बहुत
yeah, and
बड़ा है हमारा.
I think it's really very funny because it comes down to SRH, who's literally done nothing. But it's all right for them also. Tomorrow the focus is anyway. Whatever MI does would be of least significance, right? And in IPL you don't see that much happening, so it's just very humorous in my part.
Right. So I guess the pressure is on Mr. Ambani. Rohit has done his part. Now it's on Mr. Ambani. And let's hope that the umpire picks up his call tonight, and then the rest is history. Anyway, we end our discussion here. We hope that maybe Mumbai turns into a miracle, and things have been very interesting for the second leg of the IPL, where we've seen a lot of low-scoring ones, but some matches where we saw sudden capitulation, like Rajasthan Royals and teams bouncing back as well. So maybe we are in for a miracle, but for that you need to tune in and join us tomorrow. Until then, keep liking and sharing and commenting on our videos on the Sports Bash YouTube channel. And do comment if you want us to discuss a particular part of a match that you would like us to contribute and make a video on. Being said that, this is me, Nishit, signing off with my regular panelists, Vaipan and Jai. Good night, everyone. See you all tomorrow.